The first players in No Man's Sky were blind. You could say they were lied to. They were given Stargate-like portals they had no chance of activating. They had no way to know where they were. They knew there are hundreds of thousands of other players playing the game and had no way to find each other. Do you think that deterred them from trying? Not a chance. This is the case file of how a captive population broke the simulation. GoodGuysFree here, and if you're not interested in how those amazing pioneers cracked the code, use the chapters to skip to Chapter 6, Anatomy of a Glyph Address. Chapter 1, The Solitary Void. In the beginning, back before C, B, A, and S class was even a thing, the simulation was designed to enforce total isolation. It was a procedural labyrinth mathematically capped at 18.4 quintillion planets, a prison of unimaginable scale. The early travelers were forced to crawl through the dark. Their hyperdrives, even when pushed to their absolute limits with upgrades known as Sigma, Tau, and Theta reactors, could only manage a few hundred to a couple of thousand light years at a time. It was an agonizing, blinding grind. And the game had a flaw. A memory cache so severely limited that if a traveler flew too far out into the expanse, the record of their earliest discoveries was quietly erased, overwritten, and lost to the void. Portals existed already on day one, massive monolithic portals, towering over the alien landscapes, inert. Players tried every possible thing they could think of to activate them, but alas, they were dead. Silent stone archways that offered the promise of connection, but delivered absolutely nothing. The universe was cold, and the travelers were hopelessly alone. In a way, this was the creator's intent. The promises of a multiplayer experience were shattered when players found a way to reach each other's planets and could not see each other at all. Chapter 2, The Signal Booster Cipher. The players did not give up. They knew that the game must be keeping tabs of where they were. Some guessed that the signal boosters littered throughout the landscape might be holding the key, but it wasn't until November of 2016 that the Foundation update dropped and things started moving. Players were ecstatic. The update introduced the signal booster as buildable technology. It looked like a crude piece of survival tech, but when you built it and looked at it, the machine emitted a weird set of letters and numbers. It was a 5-block alphanumeric cipher, a string like this. For months, investigators stared at the first block of letters, searching for a hidden message. It was a red herring. It was there to throw them off. Eventually, the community gave up and simply called it a scanner ID, a pseudo-random string tied to local hardware or naming conventions that held absolutely zero navigational value. The rest of the string, however, that was the key. By placing these signal boosters in different systems, players realized the numbers change in a predictable way. It took hours on end of painstaking research, but the players figured it out. The numbers were offsets. They translated directly to the X, Y, and Z axes of a hidden three-dimensional voxel grid, with each voxel housing multiple star systems. And the last set of numbers? That was found to be the Solar System Index, or SSI, the system number in the same voxel. The architects of the engine had given players a gift, the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Of course, they had to invent the concepts of north, south, east, and west, and the conventions they chose stuck to this day. Chapter 3, The Cartographers. Knowing your coordinates was one thing. Crossing the galaxy was a whole other story entirely. The travelers were staring at raw numbers. How do they relate to where you were trying to go? They still couldn't see each other when visiting the same location, but they could share interesting planets they encountered. These were the very early stages of the community we see today. Enter the Cartographers, pioneers operating in the shadows. One of them built an external decryption tool called the Pilgrim Starpath app. It took the raw signal booster hex codes, calculated the Euclidean distance, and spat out exact vector headings. The problem is simple. While in the galaxy map, you have no idea how to point in the direction of your target. The only thing you can really figure out when in the galaxy map is the direction to the center of the galaxy. So the idea was simple. You input the two coordinates, yours and your destination. Go to the galaxy map and point yourself towards the center. The Pilgrim Starpath web application functioned as a makeshift GPS. It told you how much to turn left or right from the center of the galaxy, and estimated how many jumps you needed to make. It even warned them when they needed to adjust their vertical y-axis elevation up or down the galactic plane. Following these blind angles, travelers began converging. They initiated mass migrations, establishing civilized space and the Galactic Hub. This was the first acknowledged civilization in No Man's Sky, and it is such an institution that they have their logo in the game. The Galactic Hub established themselves in a contiguous swath of space encompassing 11 regions or voxels. Back then, they set up an ingenious naming convention. They added the solar system index number directly into the names of the stars like this, where N is the region out of the 11 they claimed, and the 3 pound signs stand for the solar system index. Because it was a contiguous swath of space, people could see the names on the galaxy map and easily find the systems they wanted to reach. A society was forming in the dark. Chapter 4: The Portal Trap and the Superhighway. Then, in August of 2017, Hello Games dropped the Atlas Rises update, and the dead portals woke up. The stone archways sparked to life with a swirling blue glow. They had glyphs as addresses, and they needed to decode them so they could know where each address lies and navigate this universe. The travelers thought they had finally been handed the key to endless exploration and location sharing.
It's a trap!
It was a trap. Hello Games unleashed portal interference. A traveler could step through the gate, but on the other side, they didn't have their ship, and even if they made it to space, the galaxy map and teleporter network were disabled. They were locked. But these early pioneers were determined to find a way, and you know the saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Remember black holes? Back then, these were chaotic beasts throwing you in a random direction and a random distance away, sometimes halfway across the galaxy. But then someone noticed they can use the Discoveries page to set a custom waypoint, and it stayed when they came back. With the Pilgrim Starpath app, they now had the tools to navigate, and the era of the black hole roulette began. They would portal to a wanted destination just to log a waypoint in the galaxy map, return to their origin, make a save, and fly into a black hole. If it spat them out in the wrong quadrant, they would reload their save and try the jump again, dozens of times, over and over, until a jump brought them closer to the destination and the cycle would start again. Chapter 5: A Universe Reborn. In the summer of 2018 came the next update, and everything changed. To the shock and dismay of the huge community, the entire universe of No Man's Sky was reset, removing old player bases, changing the planets and systems completely. Players hoped portal interference would disappear. It didn't. But not all was bad. Real multiplayer was finally added, bringing with it a huge surge of excitement. Advanced base building. Freighters could now be owned, and players hoped, but quickly found out they couldn't summon their freighter on the other side of the portal. But among these changes appeared a new glimmer of hope. Black holes were no longer random. The same black hole would always exit in the same location, and almost always a bit closer to the galactic center. The travelers jumped on the opportunity, and the Black Hole Suns project was born. Thousands of volunteers started mapping thousands of black hole entry and exit points. Over 20,000 black holes were cataloged, and the Black Hole Suns project created the DARK algorithm, an algorithm to help travelers find the nearest mapped black hole and plot a path through multiple warp jumps and multiple black holes, effectively creating an interconnected galactic superhighway through the void, jumping sometimes tens of thousands of light years in a single bound. Then, in September of 2020, Hello Games released the Origins update, and finally, the portal interference was lifted. The portals were fully unlocked, and the Black Hole Suns project was no longer needed. But such an amazing database would not go to waste. One traveler was recently granted access to their database to add to a new Galactic Atlas project. Glyphs.had.sh embodies the true spirit of the No Man's Sky community, creating amazing resources by the community for the community. and I am honored to have been able to help Had, its creator, even if that was just a tiny bit of help. Chapter 6. The Anatomy of a Glyph Address. Through careful analysis, travelers recognized the patterns. The 16 portal glyphs were revealed to be a one-to-one graphical representation of hexadecimal digits from 0 through F. By traveling to different planets in the same system, explorers identified that the first glyph represents the planet number in the system, giving them the ability to choose which planet to target. By going to nearby systems in the same region of space and then meticulously comparing the glyph values and the signal booster values, the early explorers cracked the code. And here it is. Glyph 1, the planet index. This can be any number from 1 to 6. Glyphs 2, 3, and 4, Solar System Index, SSI, the specific star system in the region. Glyphs 5 through 12, the region coordinates, the precise X, Y, and Z of the region on the massive galactic map. But something was a bit different. There were consistent differences compared to the signal booster. Consistent enough to help them figure it out. In the portal addresses, the region coordinates were arranged YY, ZZZ, XXX, and not XY and Z like in the signal booster. The convention that stuck is that the x-axis is called east-west, the z-axis is called north-south, and the y-axis is called above-below. The YY glyphs represent the distance above or below the mid-plane of the galaxy. The value 0 is on the mid-plane, and increasing it goes up. At 127 it tops out, and 128 wraps to the bottom, continuing to go up until we hit 255, just below the center. The same thing goes for the x-axis, which increases eastward, wrapping at 2048 from the east edge to the west edge, continuing eastward up to 4095, one voxel to the west of the center. The z-axis is the same as the x-axis, only it increases southward. With renewed excitement came new revelations. By analyzing the SSI addresses, they identified some patterns. Normal star systems used the hex codes 001 to 2FF. If the SSI was 079, they had a black hole in the system. If it was 07A, an Atlas station was waiting. Much later, in January of 2025, Worlds Part 2 update dropped and added a new class of star systems, purple star systems, which can only be revealed after completing quite a few of the game's storyline quests. These use the values 1001 to 1065 or 3E9 to 429. Portal addresses allowed for 281.4 trillion combinations in theory. What if you used a value that is out of range in a portal? If a traveler dialed an empty coordinate, an architectural failsafe kicks in. The portal flashes red with an Atlas transport error. The game calculates a nearby safe destination for you. Chapter 7. The Edge of Reality. But what about different galaxies? As you may already know, you can use the core of a galaxy to hop to the next galaxy. I have an older video about galaxy hopping on your screen. You start your game in Galaxy 1, Euclid, and each time you use the core, you jump to the next galaxy. But portal addresses and signal booster addresses do not account for different galaxies. This means that giving someone an address without the galaxy the address refers to is pointless. You can portal to that address, but the system will be different and you will not find what you are looking for. The game uses an 8-bit integer for the galaxy number, capping reality at 255 stable galaxies. If a traveler reaches the center of the 255th galaxy, Ayusongula, a rollover occurs, looping them all the way back to Euclid, Galaxy 1. But before this rollover protocol existed, some travelers reached Galaxy 255 and used the core to go to the next galaxy and found themselves in Galaxy 256, Odialutai. Hello Games did not want that, but they did not want the backlash of destroying what people created in Odialutai already. So they left it, but sealed its gates. Travelers could only reach Odialutai via multiplayer taxis, which my Discord server can help you do if you wish, or by tampering with their save files. What about Galaxy 257? This galaxy is a myth. A long time ago, data miners found a name associated with this theoretical galaxy, Yilsrusimil, forcing the engine to take you there triggers a failsafe that basically puts you into Galaxy 3, Calypso. Curiously, if you use the core of Galaxy 256 or Dialutai to try and reach the next galaxy, a similar failsafe triggers and puts you in Galaxy 2, Hilbert Dimension. Coercing the game engine into and beyond the boundaries of its abilities is dangerous. I do not wish anyone to be hurt, as these things can completely destroy your save file. Having said that, you should know that the bravest of the pioneers found really weird things when they tried. These are called phantom systems, and they are big trouble. Even saving your game while in such a system can sometimes make your save file corrupt. These anomalies were so lethal that the Alliance of Galactic Travelers formed a task force, the Department of Phantom Initiatives, DPI, simply to quarantine and document these mathematical nightmares. Chapter 8, Conquering the Void. They started in the dark, isolated, lied to, kept apart by an engine designed to enforce solitude. Today, the Void has been mapped. The pinnacle of this decade-long investigation now sits in multiple different mapping projects. One of these is HAD's cartographic atlas at glyphs.had.sh, but there are others. The machine had tried to hide the universe from them. They stole it back. GoodGuysFree here. I hope to see you again soon.